The sound of Oxfordshire.
Together, we can make a difference. BBC
Radio Oxford.
It's our final day on sharing so many incredible coming out stories ahead of National Coming Out Day, which is this Sunday. So we've heard people opening up about coming out in the 80s, how others came out as transgender in a very casual manner, and the ages that they were at the time and how their friends and family received it and responded to the news. But now we have non-binary film critic James Luxford, and they join me now. Hello, James. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's so nice to hear from you. Please explain about how you first came out.
I came out as bisexual about 5 years ago. So I'd already sort of gone through the process of sitting down with friends and family and sort of the more, I suppose, official, what you would imagine a coming out process to be like. And as is quite common for a lot of non-binary people and transgender people, once you kind of grappled with that aspect of yourself, that sexuality, then I suppose questions around gender started to pop up, and it's something I've never really had the language for when I was younger, and I'm in my mid-30s now, and so a few years ago, I began reading and hearing about other non-binary people online, and it just seemed to fit, really, and I sort of began to realize there was a different way of expressing myself, both in terms of the way I dress, in terms of the way I present to the world, and in terms of the way I feel, just fitting outside, I suppose, outside of the binary, as the name suggests.
So when you first came out as bisexual, James, how did your friends and family take it?
It was a mixed bag. I think there was some questions, and you have to go through that sort of that gamut. I'm still married to my wife, and there were a lot of questions about, why are you doing that if you're already married? Is this indicative of something else? And those are hard questions to go through. It's not something that if you don't have to come out, that you have to go through sort of these almost interrogatory kind of experiences. But we got through it, and I think as life went on, it just became a part of who I was. And the more comfortable I became with myself, the more I was able to sort of address identity. Having suppressed being bisexual for so long, it sort of opened up more aspects of who I was, I suppose.
And I think as you get older, you become more confident in yourself. And I think it's because at school, I felt this, you always wanted to be someone else because they looked cooler and everything. But when you finally realise that this is who you are for the rest of your life, you start to think, okay, well, I've got to get comfortable with myself, and I've just got to do what I feel makes me feel good and how I want to represent myself. So at what point did you come to terms with yourself on living as non-binary? When did you think, actually, that is exactly how I've been feeling and how I want to be portrayed as?
I think when I first saw someone on television explaining what non-binary was, and I think my first reaction was one of just sort of wrinkling my nose and thinking, I don't know, if I've never heard of that before. That sounds strange. And I think some part of me thought, well, they don't get to do that because I've been struggling with who I am. I've been uncomfortable with my own skin. So why should they have to? Why shouldn't they have to struggle like I did? And I think it was that. I think all my life I've sort of been a bit awkward and a bit uncomfortable in my own skin. And I thought, well, that's just how people are, isn't it? And the more I engaged with Pride organisations and going to things like London Pride and Oxford Pride and Prides all over the country, you learn about different groups and you learn about different identities. And the more I learned about non-binary, it seemed to click in so many ways, in the same way that bisexual did years ago. And it was, I suppose, about 3 or 4 years ago, I began to sort of dress a bit differently, dress a bit more like myself, I suppose. I always felt, particularly in terms of clothing, I would be dressing to present a certain way that didn't really feel like me. And when I dress now, it's a little bit more like myself.
Good. How would you explain non-binary to yourself? What is non-binary to you, James?
I think it's existing outside of the strict binaries, if you will, of male and female, and being on somewhere along the gender spectrum. It just, none of the particular, I suppose, strict pigeonholes that we learn along growing up and in our lives seem to fit, and you're just sort of a wonderful blend of lots of different things, and both in the way you feel, in the way you want to present to the world, and just the way you are. It's not the most straightforward explanation, I know, but people aren't straightforward. Who we are isn't straightforward. Who we love and how we wish to be in ourselves isn't always straightforward.
Exactly that. Life is complicated, you know. You just got to find your way and do what is comfortable for you. So what advice do you have for someone who can relate, James, who is going through it and just thinking, this is really tough? What would you say?
I would say there's no pressure to decide on something immediately, both with being bisexual and being non-binary. I felt a pressure to rush towards certain things, and like the decision I would make would cost me something, and sometimes it did. Sometimes there were people in my professional and personal lives who just didn't seem to be there anymore once I came out. But it's a price you pay for finding that happiness in yourself, and so I think to maybe think about these things, think about what's right for you, not the consequences of what you would decide, what other people might think, what you might have to face if you do decide that you're a particular identity. Just start off with deciding what fits.
Lovely. Thank you so much, James. I really appreciate you being so brave and talking to me about it. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was James Luxford. They are a non-binary film critic, and they've just opened up on how they came out as well. So big love to absolutely everyone who has been contributing and sharing their coming out stories. That is not easy, saying it on the radio. So I really do value and appreciate it. It's a truly inspiring and brave thing to do. And I hope that you might have learnt something or have received some support, or you found that you could relate or resonate to any of those stories. Thank you all to who were involved.